Hello guys. You know this 396 big block Ford does get tiring after a while, so we do make videos occasionally of this other car, my Ford Fusion 2.3 liter Duratec motor. What am I doing today on it, you ask? Well, just basically a service. It's summertime. We gotta make sure this car's running alright for the summertime here. So what am I going to do right now? I have the oil cap off, just let it vent a little bit. We're going to do a full-on oil change to this car. It'll let you see around here underneath the hood of a Fusion 2.3 liter. Not too much different than what you see on a normal car, but a lot more electrics than what you'll see on the 396 big block Ford, that's for sure. Anyway, what I decided to do, last time I changed oil on this car was in February. Kind of a cold day. I put in Valvoline 5W20 because that's what it recommends here. Usually all the newer Fords recommend this. Anywhere from 2001 I've seen to 2008 and newer recommend a 520. And it's usually in the Motorcraft you get a synthetic blend, or if you want to run, which they don't recommend it, and I ran it for a couple of times, a 5W20 in conventional. And usually did the Valvoline on that too, because the Valvoline is a much, I think, a better oil anyway. And it was pretty good. It ran pretty good and really no problems other than, no fuel economy wise. I didn't really notice, like they said it would affect it. But anyway, so what I'm going to actually run now is different than what both Ford and both Valvoline that I'd put in it ever before. Last time I changed it, I put a DuraBlend in, Valvoline DuraBlend 520 with the Lucas Oil synthetic oil stabilizer that I put into it. And that seemed to do alright in terms of dry starting and different things like performance and power. But let's try and step into something maybe a little more full synthetic and a little more full on performance. And I did it in my Ford pickup a couple of weeks back. I changed the oil in it and we went to Royal Purple. Get this other part out of the way. That's not for the Fusion today. We got the Royal Purple full synthetic 520 with a Napa Premium Gold oil filter, basically. That's about the only one they do, because this filter, as I will show you upcoming, it's not anything like a regular oil filter that you'll see in a car. It's actually a cartridge type filter like the older style cars. First step for me anyway, I go over to the old toolbox here and find the sets I need of tools for it. They're actually I got a new set of gear wrenches that are flex head, so get to try these out today, see how well they work, get them a little bit dirty anyway. Okay, so let's take a look under what I have so far. Okay, I actually already have the size on here, 13 millimeter, which is actually kind of getting to be a standard plug for some of these newer Fords. Most of them anymore are millimeter. They're not a standard. Now, as you noticed before, I think this car, I never felt it or had it, but it had a cover at one time to keep it all covered up under here, because this car's pretty much covered. You can't see the underneath of the engine unless you remove a lot of this plastic. So the oil filter actually even says oil filter. You can see there. Has to be removed later, but I'll show you in a different step. So if your car had a cover, it probably just twists off. On this one, looks like it didn't have a bolt or anything to mount it to. So let me break it off and we'll go from there. Now what I'm using is, like I said, it's a 13 millimeter. Let me see if I can take it off so I can show you. Okay, got the wrench off finally. It is a 13 millimeter gear wrench, just a closed box end. They prefer a lot on these wrenches if you have, can't focus on it, sorry, I'm in an awkward position. But they recommend a lot you have a 12-point socket, or not a 12-point, a 6-point, usually because it doesn't strip the bolts as better, or as like a 12-point does here. And unfortunately, you don't see a lot of wrenches that are 6-point, especially in a gear wrench. This is a 12-point. It'll work just fine as long as you're careful with it. And it won't round it off as long as you have the right size, too. And usually, this is a 13 millimeter. They skip down to 12, and that's about it. The 12 would be a little too small. And then in the standard size, would be a little too big for it, because metric sometimes is a little too, it's a little bit bigger than what you have in your standard sizes, and then there's a certain point where metric and standard, they come together and they're pretty much the same size, but I don't have that type of plug on this one. So let me show you how I'm going to get it off. I'm going to use this wrench here, and then if it's a little too tight, what I can do is I can get a closed box end, and then I'm going to cross it over this tooth here. Let's see if I can do it just one-handed here. Let me see. Just like that. And then I have a longer bar, essentially, that I can pull it out. So let me see if I can get it here. Okay. See, it's just barely dripping a little bit. Now, proper procedure states that you're supposed to let this car warm up a little bit, and I did. It's pretty hot actually right now, but there's been some times where I'm just kind of lazy, don't really want to start it, and basically I started for about 5 seconds just to move it on the ramps, and that's about it. So it's barely warmed up. Okay, after that's done, tighten up your oil plug now, and I'm a stickler. I like to clean all the oil, whatever I get on it. Okay. Here's kind of what the whole assembly looks like there. Just a reservoir for oil. Now in the container there's the cartridge filter. Kind of a shoddy design, I have to say, by Ford to put a cartridge back on, but it's the new 21st century. You do what you can, I guess. There's the plug for the bottom. Take it off. Okay, once you've moved to a bench area, you want to go ahead and take off those 2 O-rings I was telling you about. And make sure, like I said, in the box here, I'll show you what you need here. Make sure you take out, sometimes at the auto parts store or what have you, make sure your filter looks about the same there, which that one pretty much does. It's just a regular cartridge filter. It's like a little bit of paper, but it is their premium filter. About the best one you can get for that car. And then, like I said, the 2 O-rings will be in there. That'll be the replacements. And you'll want to go ahead and replace those 2, because you might, if you use the old ones, sometimes they'll say if they've been soaked in oil too long, they won't seal as well. So they give you new ones in the kit anyway. Might as well use what they have. And then you'll be ready to put the Royal Purple on. So I'll show you what it looks like when you get it all assembled. Now, what you want to make sure is you get all the old oil cleaned out of this if you're going to switch over to a Royal Purple, or if you're switching oil in general. So what I just did is I wiped out the inside as best I could with this rag here, and then using my brake parts cleaner, which is about the best cleaner you can get there, to clean all the oil junk out of it and clean the threads and stuff off there. So see what it looks like when it goes back. Now after you get your oil filter pretty much taken care of, that's what it looks like sitting in there brand new. That plug on the bottom, you want to make sure though too that you don't over tighten it. It just has really just a snug up to it. It'll tighten so far and then it stops. So make sure you don't over tighten it or you'll strip it out, because it's only a plastic casing, but they have a brass insert for the threads. So now you're pretty much ready to put it on. Now what you can do on these, which I found is pretty neat, is sometimes you can, on this O-ring, you can't see it now, not like when it was on there because it was green, like that one, but you can coat this O-ring actually with the light film of oil so it'll seal better. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It usually seals either way, on this car anyway. Now on a typical oil filter change, yeah, you would want to put some oil around this sealing part here, but usually, since this is pretty much an oil filter itself, just a little more out, I guess you could say exposed, more exposed than a regular oil filter is, you really just put the oil on there, and then you can tighten it down and you're ready to put the oil in it. So we'll get to that part later. Now goes the Royal Purple 520. After you put I put 5 quarts in, then we'll start it, we'll check it, make sure it warms up to speed there, and if it's good to go, then we're pretty much done for this project. So for now, we'll bid you adieu. I will let you know how the Royal Purple works out. Okay, hope you guys had a good time without me on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. More videos will be coming. Getting a little more time to do them, so I'll have a couple of updates on the old 72 and see where we go from there, okay? Thanks, guys.